It's time for Brother, Can We Talk? With the original Coach Carter, the elder Rory T. Edwards, and Charles E. Morse. Let's have great conversation, exchange ideas and information. And now, it's time for Brother, Can We Talk?
Well, good evening. Welcome back to Brother, Can We Talk? We're so happy to be back with you. And I see familiar faces and some new faces, and we're so happy that you're here with us. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, kings and queens. Good evening and welcome back to another edition for Brother, Can We Talk? A couple of housekeeping items, reminders I want to put on the table right away. Keep in mind, keep your comments limited to 1 minute so that everybody have an opportunity to express themselves. Remember to turn off your mic after you've commented so that we don't get any feedback. And if you have any questions or comments, please send them to the chat and we'll be sure to answer them. Thank you so much again for being with us. And without further ado, let's get into tonight's topic. First of all, Jan, how nice to see you. First time I actually seen you. Thank you for joining us. Welcome. I see Sister Bertha over there. So happy to see you. Oh, by the way, Jan, you're a Rory's sister. You are a brave person to come on and announce that. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being with us. Brother Pearson, what a pleasure. And Reverend Crutcher. Regina, I see you hiding in the wings. I know Trika's hiding in the wings out there also, Trika, and also Sister Mia. We're so happy to have you there. This evening's topic, let's talk about that. This evening's topic is how do we as African Americans, people of color, Blacks take advantage of the new administration? What do we do? What do we have to do to make sure that our voices and concerns are addressed? Now, I want to make sure, and I started it off by giving 3 different categories because I believe that there's a difference between African Americans, people of color, and Blacks. There is a distinct difference there. And so I would love very much to get some feedback on that and welcome you in to have this conversation. I'm going to start with Brother Crutcher. Brother Crutcher, good evening and welcome back. Glad to have you. Would like to know your feelings about that. How do we, as African Americans, people of color and Blacks, take advantage of the new administration? What do we have to do to make sure our voices and concerns are addressed? Your point of view.
My point of view, what we have to do is use our connections to get involved into speaking to the administration from different perspectives. One of the things that we have to do is we have to be concerned about helping the administration resolve some of the issues that's facing our nation. Because one of the things is, before we can come from a standpoint of, say, a list of things I want, and want, we've got to have a concerted effort to try to help bring some unity in this nation. Because if we don't unify this nation real quickly, we're going to be in a mess. And some stuff going to release that none of us want to see. So our first priority has got to get in terms of speaking how we can help bring some unity back to a nation that's been torn asunder. So we need to make sure, position ourselves that we can speak and be in position to try to help the administration resolve some of those issues. We've got to help in this crisis of this pandemic crisis, because this virus is spreading to some real scary proportions.
Yeah, yes,
and
it
so
is.
I think if we let because if we help people resolve stuff, we automatically become a voice. The best way to become a voice is to get involved and help resolve the things. Then you become a part of what takes place after that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much, Brother Cressy. May I also, Brother Rich Edwards, thank you for joining us. You two are a very proud member of the Edwards family. We welcome all of you. We're going to have a quite a family reunion here shortly. So welcome to the show. Thank you so very much for taking the time to join us. Brother Pearson, may I get your opinion on that statement?
Just to piggyback on what Brother Crutcher said, we do have to be active and be visible. We have to make sure that we stay somewhat, essentially, we have to organize ourselves as a community. And I know we're going to have a lot of different leaders and we're going to have a lot of different people who have a lot of different issues, but we do have to stay diligent. And that's basically kind of piggybacking what he said. I think the initial shock of the election and how many people actually support it,
right.
The counterparty tells you that we do have a tough road ahead of us, because there are a lot of people that a button, I say put a butt behind it. I know he's this butt, and the butt allows them to exercise an alternative view than what I think they should be doing.
That's an interesting statement. I have something I'd like to add to that later, but I want to come back to that later. Jan, may I call upon you to get your opinion on that statement?
All right, sorry, I was trying to take myself off of mute. Hi, my
That's
big
okay.
brother Rory. That's what I'm first going to say. I think, personally, in my opinion, we talk about the federal and the government, administration, but we need to start at the local, right? So we need to hold our local politicians just as accountable as we would for our government. And so if there's infighting in our local, then we're never going to be successful there, right? And so as one of the speakers said before, we have to get involved, right? And meaning we don't have that much access to the federal level, but we have access to our local level. And that's the most important, right? Holding them accountable for everything that's happening in our cities, our localities, our states. And from there, it bubbles up to the top. So I think it starts in our local level and us getting involved and not just sitting back, allowing the elections to happen and then fall back and just say, it will change, right? We still have to hold them accountable for everything that's happening right now in our environment.
Thank you. I agree with you. An interesting thing about this particular administration coming in, it's heavily colored and it's a lot of females. And which that to me tells me there's an opportunity for us to make that local, state, and federal connection in there. At least we would hope so. That's something to consider. And I appreciate that point. Regina, may I get your opinion? Thank you, Jan.
Sorry about that. I was trying to unmute. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I do agree with Jan that we should start at the local level. I know that in Florida, in 2022, we have another senatorial election coming up. And so I said all that to say that the voting doesn't stop, the registration doesn't stop, because if we're going into 2021 and 2022 is that next election cycle for Congress, and 2023 they take office. So we just have to, not lose any steam with registration and with voting and with educating everyone about the candidates that will be running locally, statewide, and federal. So I think that's what we can do, continue to do. Just don't lose that steam that momentum that we built up.
Thank you, Regina. I agree with that. Sister Johnson. Oh, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Mute.
I'm sorry. I agree with what Jan and Regina said. We need to stay engaged in our from the local level, because it does start from the local level, and we should hold our political parties accountable for the issues. And we need to, once we make our declaration, we need to know that we need to put people in place that understand our plight.
Right.
And
That's
once
true.
they're there, let them know that they represent us. They represent us, the people, and we have the power. because we can show that power by petitions or by the voting box. So once they understand what we need, but we have to be clear and decisive on what issues we really want them to address. Like right now, the pandemic issue, and there are a lot of other, I don't want to say racial issues, but there are a lot of other issues that's going on that need to be addressed. So they need to know. And on that point, a lot of times when we're putting politicians into office, they might not necessarily look like us, but they need to understand our plight.
That's an excellent point. I think that's a very valid point. I want to throw this out for just a second. Here's a number that I think kind of speaks to what it is that we're speaking to, and that is that Blacks have an annual buying power of $1.3 trillion. This is greater or equivalent to 15 countries' GDPs, falling behind Spain and Mexico. This is just buying power. If that's much buying power, and we're looking like in 2022 when that number will go to 1.5 trillion, shouldn't it equate to some type of impact into the areas in which we're talking about? Brother Edwards, what's your thoughts on that?
Good evening. Definitely want to say hello to my sister. She finally popped her camera on, and my brother. We'll get him on in a few weeks. We'll get him on. But
baby steps, baby
steps, right? Even though he's the oldest, we're gonna get the baby steps. But one of the things I want to do is, I know Regina's gonna help me on this. When you look at the amount of what we as African Americans do as far as buying power, we have to look at how we allocate and how we reintroduce that money into our own communities. See, we'll go out and there'll be somebody in the neighborhood who opens up a business, a small business, but we'll go to the mall because we believe that first and foremost, if people see us at the mall buying something, that means that we have a little bit more money than the person in the neighborhood, and we'll go spend the extra $25 in the mall versus paying for the person who is trying to start their own business, and then reintroduce that money into the African American community. If you look at all the other communities, our dollar is the only one that goes 1 for 1. If you look at other communities, their dollars recirculate back into their community at least 8 to 9 times. And so if we're going to change our mindset in being a force within the country, within the world, even though we are the most dominant race in the world as far as our productivity and our creativity and our ingenuity, we are the least most productive of supporting one another. And so I think that when we talk about the buying power, we are great at being consumers, but we're terrible at being owners. We would rather buy than to create the product. And then the other thing, most of us buy stuff that we can't even pronounce. We go out and think that if I buy what they say, Goucher, they don't even know how to say it's Gucci, but they might go and buy something from Goucher. And then I had a sister tell me the other day she was going to Target, which means she's going to Target. But she's going to Target because she tells people that she thinks that Target is going to get her outfit more credibility than buying it at Target. So we just have to change our mindset and our thoughts. And I think once we do that, then our buying power will have the same significance as our voting power. Because these elections, this new administration, I just want to add that this new administration would have never been in office if it wasn't for the African American communities in Georgia and Pennsylvania and what other state? There's another state. North Carolina, but they lost North Carolina, but they even made a major impact in Texas. So those particular areas. So we have to realize that our voting power, even though we're 13%, we still made a significant impact on our voting ability, just like we can make an impact with our buying power.
Right, and let me follow up on that. Thank you, Brother Edwards. When you look at that, talking about that impact, one of the things I think we need to look at, my suggestion would be to look at it from an industry standpoint, banking, housing. How do we impact those areas to increase personal wealth? That in fact, it goes back to what Jan says, that increase local wealth it increase states' wealth, increase federal wealth, will increase wealth overall. Now that's something to look at. And I also would have to challenge the faith-based community. What do we do there in redirecting? We're saving souls, but as we save souls, we save lives, we save families, we change direction. Are we doing enough in those areas to address that? Are we looking at the industries and attracting the industries into this goal of $1.3 trillion? I think we have some influence. Reverend Kretzer, what you think?
First of all, I agree with you that we're not doing enough. And the reason why we're not doing enough is because we're too divided. We're too busy trying to build our own little empires. The house of faith has become too much concerned about self and personal empires than about the holisticness of what ministry was created for.
Interesting.
And so what we've got to do is begin to, and it's a captive order in the house of faith. And what we've
interesting.
And so so with that, another part of that is this: we've got to stop when our people get blessed and get high-paying jobs. We've got to stop leaving our community and sending our money. We do the same thing everywhere. When we get to a certain financial level, then no longer can we go to the church in the Black community. We've got to cross the road and go to the church in the white community.
Well, you're not
that already have more resource in what they need. Now, correct. God has blessed us, and that church has got us to where we are. But all of a sudden, we take our resources elsewhere. And so both of those things got to happen. We got to stop trying to build these little individual kingdoms and work together to help people achieve more. And then when God has blessed us more, then we've got to learn, I need to give back to the community that brought me to where I am.
I would want to comment on that for a moment, because in the faith-based community, again, I'm never questioning about what the general purpose is. But I think the point you strike on is the point that I'm most interested in, is the holistic approach to living. We come to church on Sunday and what I hear a lot of times, people only live for Sunday. So what happens Monday through Saturday? If we give on Sunday, why don't we give in some capacity Monday through Saturday? Where's that sharing attitude that we have when the altar prayer goes through on Sunday, that it doesn't always have to be money. Sometimes it's time and resources. It's that just time. Do you feel, am I off base in my thoughts that that's where I think one of the areas, and I'm not picking on the faith-based community, don't get me wrong. I'm just thinking there's another industry or area where we could grow and have greater impact.
I agree with you holistic. And I'm wanting to say, to be critical about the faith-based community is not to be against it.
Right, correct.
Anything that can't handle some judgment got problems. and God judges everything he created. And the first thing he did, he said, oh, it's good. So if we're not willing to judge our actions to see if we can do things in a more excellent way, then we're really not following the way of Christ. But I agree with you. What we have to do is we have to teach people not just to give to the church. Again, that's about building little individual kingdoms.
Correct.
We've got to teach people to give to needs in society and needs that God has lead us to. And what we've got to do is begin to come together and put our voice and say, here's something that we need to give. We've got to get churches involved into giving to those needs, rather than people just receiving from God to build their own little base up. And that's not everybody, but it's too much of that takes place.
Well, Reverend Question, a lot of time I think we misunderstand the 10% that we're supposed to give to the church. The other 90% is for you to do something else with besides just feed yourself. Yes. That's where that selfish attitude comes. Well, I gave my 10. Now the rest of y'all just got to do the best that you can. So a good point. Thank you so much for that.
Okay.
Brother Pearson, looking at the $1.3 trillion buying power, I understand that you are working in the real estate area. How do we impact that? How does that type of buying power in your industry or any industry, but I'm specifically speaking to that one, does it have that? Can we use to hit our voice heard? How do we do that?
Well, I think that, a lot of it starts with A lot of it starts with education. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I'm sorry.
All right. Yeah, a lot of it starts with education. I know that the things that I learned as an older man and through my life experiences have led me to have my own ministry within my relationships with people, and that how I try to teach them, how I try to educate them on the financial economics of doing what we do. I think as a community, we have to definitely become more educated, but I think that stuff like what we're doing here with Brother Can We Talk, we need more stuff like that that inspires people and get people more involved. I mean, it's almost like if a pastor in a church, I'll just use a church for an example, as it challenges everybody to reach out and mentor somebody with a real relationship, everybody. And then if he asks everybody to stand up, at the next month, we're going to ask everybody to be accountable. I mean, I think we got to have something like that we start trying to hold each other accountable, do more than just do our 10% or give in other ways. We need to give within us, give from ourselves, where we'll be more engaged and more involved as a community.
And also, staying with you for just a second, and gathering wealth, okay, looking at this, again, going back to this $1.3 trillion of buying power, can we turn that around to our advantage? I think we're buying, but can we be more strategic in our buying and gathering our wealth? Do you see that as a foothold into getting our voice heard?
Well, the hardest part about that is, overcoming all the negative stereotypes and the negative feelings that we have within ourselves, with our own community. I own property in different areas, and I grew up in what we call the hood. So I know how to watch my back whenever I go. But do I want to come out my house and have that same feeling? No, I don't. So that puts me in a different area. But I'm still able to maneuver in and out of it. But there's certain things that I want. So that makes it hard, as we say, support our community. I mean, I try to support our community, but I have whites, blacks, Mexicans, everybody working for me. I care about getting doing the job done. That's my first priority. But I do want to give my brothers a chance. So, I mean, it's a constant battle that we fight between those of us that are conscious of it.
Yes, that's a good point. Regina, in the banking industry, can we take that in? How can we use that industry to help gain voice in this $1.3 trillion buying power that we have? What can we do in this, looking at this current administration and what it's proposing? How can we get a piece of that? Because if we can get loans, we can go over to Brother Pearson and we can get property, we can build land wealth. We can create housing for those who can. We can do a lot of things, but first of all, we got to have access to the money. How do you see that?
It does go back to education. And when I say education in the areas of credit and your credit report and things of that nature. No one is going to lend you any money if you don't have an acceptable credit score, period. Okay. And if they do, it's going to cost you a lot more than the loan is worth. So that would be the first thing. And I believe that we can, I don't know if I can explain this in the amount of time that I have, but in banking, what I see is there are a lot of Indians, and I mean Indians from the country India, that come here and they take advantage of the loans and the what do you call it, the no down payment, anytime that where money can be received for free, basically. And they will set themselves up in business. Then once they begin to make money, they will bring someone else in from their country to set up business for another 5 years. And they do that perpetually. Also, they live communally, meaning that they'll buy a 8 or 9 bedroom home and it will house their entire clan. That's where everybody lives. But we won't do that. We're selfish. We're selfish when it comes to things of that nature. But
if somebody want to let me come live with her, I don't mind. I'll come.
We could just come together as a people in that area, people that have good credit, and to go to the Brother Pearsons of the world and buy land, put a building on that land, buy a dilapidated strip mall, and build that up. Then we can have a piece of the pie. We always talk about seeing there's food deserts in the hood. Well, there are a lot of empty buildings in the hood that if we could just come together with our money, with our good credit, go to the bank, get a loan, we can open up those businesses and secure employment for the neighborhood, for people in the area, and also the food, the good food, the necessary food that they need to, feed their families. So it can be done. Will we do it?
Yeah, that's the question. Do we do it? Jan, what you think?
So I'll talk about, there was a rap battle that just happened the other day. So it was Young Jeezy. I'm not sure if anybody's aware of him as a rapper. And then it was Gucci Mane. And so Gucci came out and he had all his flamboyant jewelry on. He was talking about how much his sweater cost $12,000 and his hat cost $10,000. And again, as Rory said, you come out with all this flamboyant stuff, but what do you own? And he said, but guess what? I own half of Atlanta, right? And so again, we have to change the mindset of people that all this materialistic stuff doesn't matter, right? And it's a continual education for these young kids to understand material things, that doesn't mean anything, right? Because when you die, there's nothing, right? Nobody's going to bury you in your clothes and your rented jewelry. So I think as a community, again, I go back to community, is really just sitting people down, right, that are younger than us. And a lot of younger people in my area are doing the thing more than my age, right? There's a strip right here in Connecticut where I live. These young entrepreneurs, one owns a clothing store, one owns a barbershop, one owns a restaurant. So they're building Black wealth, right, in a strip that no one probably would have ever thought would have been in New Britain. And so their continual mindset is, listen, we want that generational wealth, right? So I think it's, again, multi-generational, having that conversation. We have a little bit of history. They have the tenacity. They're eager. And
they're eager,
and we became complacent. And they're not complacent, right? Because they know what they can have. And they don't need those materialistic things. A lot of kids don't. So I think it's our opportunity to continue to educate, to mentor, to groom, to help them understand what generational wealth looks like. So I think that's where our buying power, and that's where I think our strategy should be.
That I agree. That's one of a great strategy. Sister Johnson. Can't hear you.
I think we do need to rid ourselves of, because sometimes we're so biased with our own color and with our own community. We choose to go and live in a community that's that we can say we're the only Black family there, or we tend to want to, when we go out to buy things, we do tend to stray toward the bling bling, because we think that the bling bling will make us look like we're really rich. But when we sit down and look at it, like Jan says, you can have wealth. You don't have to show it, but you can have it. And I think it starts with education. It really does start with education. We need to educate our young people and some of our old people that we need to start look at it with a different view.
I do, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I know Jan will talk, and I agree with both of you about our young people. We need to look at some of our older people, because some of our older, more seasoned people, if you will, have wealth that they are hoarding, and they're not sharing that wealth. It's not necessarily the resource itself, it's the idea of it all. Experience, information, training, the education you speak of, and how to help others gain that same wealth. I'm not talking about giving money, because sometimes resources are more important than money, because money will run out. Resources are endless. You can continue to build on resources. So I agree with that 100%. Mia, can you share your thoughts on this process? How do you see this?
Good evening, everyone. I see that power is knowledge and knowledge is power. So if we stay educated, We stay open to the new possibilities. We are willing to extend and lend that olive branch to help each other. We can achieve everything that we've been discussing thus far. It is a process. It will be some barriers that we will have to cross, but such as life, we just have to come together and work within our own. And once we build that, then we can be that great community, that great culture.
We now have what is perceived to be an opportunity. Brother Al, how do you see us taking advantage of the perceived new administration, what it's bringing to the table, is opening up? How do we get our voices concerned? Prior to you coming, we talked about industry involvement, personal wealth in various different areas. And I know you spoke a little bit about banking in the past in some of your comments. So may I get your thoughts tonight? First of all, welcome. Glad to see you come back. Welcome, and may I have you share your thoughts?
Yeah, sorry I joined late.
That's okay.
But, just picking up on some of the comments. And I mean, my first thought when I saw kind of what we were going to be discussing tonight, my focus was more in terms of a collective common desire.
Right.
And trying to determine really what that is. And, when I look at myself at my age, late 60s, and people who are a lot younger, my children, other people that I associate with, it's interesting when I think back to when I was in my late 30s, 40s, and 50s, and kind of what I was driven by. And clearly, at that age, the almighty dollar was probably first and foremost. As I have gotten more seasoned, I'm still challenged to look back and try to determine what a person's priorities ought to be. And when we look at collective wealth amongst Black people, it seems that we are, much more diverse in terms of our interests now than we were, say, back in the 60s. Right. So it's kind of hard to get a collective sense of what should work collectively, particularly from an economic standpoint for us as a people. But clearly, when you look at the economic or the political stage is set, it appears that there are going to be potentially more opportunities for minorities to get a piece of the pie. And we should definitely go after that. How exactly, I'm a little bit at a loss to add to that.
But I do appreciate you bringing that up, because really what we're talking about is individually connecting to this new administration and its possibilities. So I think all your comments, and particularly as you led us back to that point, Brother Al, we all want to gain personally, but I think we also have to find out how can we do that by connecting to the administration. Reverend Crutcher, having heard what we've said, a lot of individuals, how do we connect though? What's going to allow us to get connected so that we can participate at a grassroots level or higher, as Jan had mentioned earlier, taking the steps up to actually being involved in this thing? How do you see that? And from your position, what do you think are the stepping steps?
What connects us is purpose. And we have to find things that, see, what separates us is when we first come with all of our individualistic needs, and we all automatically divide ourselves. We have to find some common things that all of us can fight for. That's why I said originally, right now we've got a virus out there. That's something that all of us can rally behind, and it can begin to bring us together and begin to see and understand individual needs that we have.
Okay.
And once we get together behind something of that nature, then and God acts to start pulling us together, and these little individual needs begin to come out of how we can resolve them. And there are ways that we can begin to. We got to build coalition first.
Right.
A lot of times we try to move without building coalition. Right now we see, as wicked as Donald Trump is, the folk behind him are united. They've got some single-minded things that they're all after. And because of that, they've been able to do some things that nobody believed they could do.
That's true.
So without unity, you won't go very far. We've got to find a way of some things that all of us can unite behind. And that's the first thing we work on. And out of that will come coalitions that we can build the individual things that we need. And when we're talking about, you're talking about resources, we've got to get to the point where we can build corporations. We have people who have money, but we don't trust each other. And we're not building corporations. Well, you got some money, but when this person who's in business has the money, but he's got to go across the street to go to somebody else to get something done. If we start building corporations, then we can leverage the resources that we have, not only for our good, but for the good of the whole. And now, all of that comes out of finding some common things that you can work on together.
That's a great point, and I want to go to brother Pearson on this question. Thank you, brother Question, and I'm going to lead that over to brother Pearson. Is the only way we can come together have to be crisis oriented? Is there any other way that we can build a coalition of support for a mission without it being a pandemic, or whether it having to be something that's so critical for us that we're forced to do that? Is there any other way that you see that we can do that?
Wow, that's a good question. That's an incredibly good question. I'm still actually reeling from the reality of this America I live in.
Yes.
I've had this week I severed a relationship, a 5-year-old relationship, from somebody that I was sending probably $500,000 to $1 million of business a year I was giving this guy. And we got into it on a little Facebook post he made, and I had to sever my relationship with him. And I hated to do it, but I called him and told him what I was doing, why I was doing it, and why I felt the way I felt, because I felt I owed him that explanation. A lot of people said, why you bother? Why you tell him? So I'm still reeling from the reality of this America we live in. And what I've started saying to people now, I understand you were at the lynching, and I feel good that you felt sorry for the brothers that was lynched. But 5 minutes later, you were wondering where the chicken was and where the mashed potatoes was. Okay, so you felt it, you understand it, but you didn't share it with nobody.
You didn't share it, yeah.
You're more concerned with, did they bring enough chicken for me to eat? So that's where we are. We're in America where people understand our plight, they feel our plight, but they're more concerned with other things. The butt keeps coming up. And I'm still trying to get myself around how do we move forward, other than having dialogue and being honest with people. But how do you move past that? And that's where I'm caught right now.
Well, it's a challenge now. And it's not an easy answer. So I'm going to go to Jan. Jan's going to make this easier for us, because she's going to package this thing.
All right.
And she will package it so we can deal with it. So Jan, it's your show. No, Jan,
you must know I have a craft business where I package things beautifully together, right? So thank you. Thank you.
Bernie just told me that. So go ahead and package it like you want to package it.
I'm gonna put a bow on it. So I think really, again, I heard a lot of conversations around being in a comfort zone, right? We have to be able to step out of those comfort zones, right?
Amen.
So, I mean, this is, I probably won't say it on this platform, but as I transition into my next life, right, of work, I have reached out and I have tapped people that have, a financial person, right? Like we have to be able to step out of our comfort zone to understand what is out there for us. There's so many different grants. There's so many different loans. There's so many different things that could put us on a trajectory to financial wealth, right? But we have to be able to come out of our comfort zone and meet with those people, right? And we have to have some trust factor as well. So tap those resources. And I think that's some of the times we don't do that. We think we can do it on our own. We can become independent and just kind of move that needle forward. But we also have to tap people. So if you see someone on your Facebook page that, you know, is a financial person, tap them. If you know somebody that writes grants, tap them, right? Because we don't know. We can't do it on our own.
And I think that's a great point that you, again, trying to connect to this administration's purpose and ideals of what they're offering. That's a great way to connect. I do a lot of research on LinkedIn, just connecting and watching, see who's there, what are they offering, what are they talking about. Some things are relative to what I'm interested in, some are not. But it's an awful lot of information. So I think that's a great point that you bring in. Brother Al, your thoughts on that?
You know, I'm still kind of thinking about that common thing that we can find to rally around.
Right, other than a pandemic.
Right, other than the pandemic. And from an economic standpoint, you know, in this day and age, it confounds me because I just don't really see that. I mean, it seems like as a people, we are pulled into so many different directions.
True.
And, you know, when you look at capitalism and its nature, I mean, there is a lot about self-determination, the drive to use resources in a way that you actually make a profit. And that really is the economic engine that has driven this country and made it great.
Right.
When you combine that with the need to be responsible corporate citizens, you have to find a way to take care of those who are least fortunate and who've been left out of the whole economic process. Now, I think that really becomes a greater challenge in this day and age, particularly when you look at things like automation.
Yes.
And when it takes fewer and fewer man hours to produce goods and services. And that trend only seems to be increasing. So at that point, how do you equitably distribute what gets produced? I mean, people talk about, you know, socialism, for instance, and from an economic standpoint, that almost became a bad word. Here in Florida, for instance, when part of the reason that South Florida apparently did not go for Biden was because they were able to use that word socialism so negatively amongst Cuban Americans, who see that as being distasteful based upon what happened in Cuba. But it almost seems like there has to be some element of that going forward. I don't know how you put it together, but I see more questions than answers.
And I think I do agree with you, and I think the one of the concern, not a concern, but the idea is with an administration that appear, and we really can't say they're actually they haven't actually done it yet, but let's just say with the intent to try to be more inclusive, we need to find a way to attach to that. And I hope we don't overlook that, because we've been, in essence, what I'm hearing and what I sometimes feel, we've been taught to be divided. We've been taught not to have a single thought, that everybody has to have an individual thought, which prevents us from becoming to that common goal, common direction that sometimes we get. I hope we can redirect that by seeing opportunity that's before us. That's what I think this represents, not 100%, but I mean, what do you think?
Well, let me give you a personal example that I'm not so proud of.
Okay.
And that I'm grappling with.
Okay.
And I've enjoyed a reasonable amount of success in my career.
Okay.
Would not consider myself to be wealthy by any stretch of the imagination, but have provided a comfortable living for me and my family. We have been blessed to have 4 children, all of which have college degrees. One has an advanced degree, and they're all doing, very reasonably well. We're blessed with that. When Bernie Sanders and even now Biden talk about student loan forgiveness, for instance, I really see the merits of that, but I guess I was kind of in the middle where there wasn't a whole lot of grant necessarily. My children got scholarships and whatever else, but a great portion of their college expenses were borne by me and their mother.
Yeah.
And so to the extent that, we have put on tens of thousands of dollars in our children's education, they're blessed to have graduated, one even Ivy League, with little or no student loan debt. So I'm thinking, where's my piece of the pie?
You're looking for a refund.
Right. I mean, that's somewhat selfish, but that's part of my reality.
Okay. There is some real reality to that. Sister Johnson, your thought on that interesting portion there, or whatever your thoughts may be. Can't hear you.
As we intertwine our thoughts and our ideas on our issues that's prevalent to us as we move up the pyramid, we need to try and take as many people up with us, and not just get select few to take, but take as many up the pyramid as we can.
Okay.
But we have to figure the way to get there. We have to get to the grassroots portion, and once at the grassroots, then make our journey, start our journey.
And I do think there's a lot of that. I don't think we can have all of what we're discussing without, there's so many different components of. I had a conversation just recently around this topic, and what we discovered, that there's not one path, there are multiple paths that will get us there. And we all have to go back to something Brother Al and many of you said, is having a common goal of success, a common goal of direction. But we're going to come at, just looking at this group right here, we're all very diverse in what we do and what we bring to the table, which could be very advantageous in a mission going forward. And each one of us bringing what they bring. And that was one of the concepts that we talk about. If we each gave our 10%, or so to speak, into that, what kind of a difference would it make in the overall effort? Because I really think that's very critical. Regina, what do you think? Am I pipe dreaming, or does that make sense?
No, not at all. There are models out there that that we can take a hold of, take a look at, to mimic. I still go back to what Jen was saying earlier, by starting from the bottom up and opening up those relationships with our local leaders and mayors, and going to town halls and the like, and getting your name out there in front of those people, so that they know who you are. And if you are taking it from a grassroots level, you should have people behind you that are going to support you as you approach these leaders and make comments as you go to the town halls. Like I said, every 2 to 4 years, we can change in Florida. We can change the Florida state legislature. Every 4 years, we can change our governor. And so we have to stay involved with these election cycles and not lose momentum, because a lot of it will, for us to be heard, starts with the vote. And then on the financial level, we do have to continue to educate our people, educate ourselves on credit and on savings. And that way, you know, when we can develop a level of trust, we can come together and buy those shopping centers and buy those dilapidated buildings and you know, and build stores in the food desert and homeless shelters and things of that nature.
It was interesting, and thank you, Regina. And Jan mentioned this, and I have knowledge of some guys that I knew too, who I thought mindset would never be in the area of entrepreneurship, who came together, they were forced to come together, quite honestly, for survival, and have since created a small enterprise that is now, not only is it taking care of them, they're being able to affect their community. And they went open a small grocery store because people in the community couldn't eat, they couldn't find what they wanted. And from a health standpoint, there were certain foods they felt were not good for these people. And there were a lot of elderly people in the community. They've opened up a thriving little mom and pop shop that has a tremendous following. And they are not as concerned, at least the conversations I've had, concerned about dollars and cents as purpose and support and impact. That's what I think I'm hearing, is that when you do, and they're being able to, you know, handle their bills or whatever they need to take care of. So that it is possible, but it is, I think Brother Al mentioned this several times about how do we get there. Brother Pearson said the same thing. He just, you know, but like, how do we do that? Brother Harold, thank you for joining us. Glad to see you. We're talking about African Americans, people of color, Blacks taking advantage of the new administration. What do we have to do to make sure our voices and concerns are heard or are addressed? And we are thus far been able to talk about an array of different opportunities, both from a local, state, and individual and group setting. Your thoughts on this process?
Well, excuse me, Brother Carter, for being late. It just slipped my mind. I am glad that we have a new administration. I think that we just need to be involved. I don't know the extent of the conversation, but I hope that we can just be involved and be committed to ourselves and to our brethren, that we can move forward. I don't have a lot of input to give coming in this late into the discussion,
Right,
but thank you for recognizing me.
Absolutely, and this is Jan, as an entrepreneur, I like calling on Jan. I can just see it on her face. She's just itching to get that out. Come on, I'm coming at you, Jan. I'm coming at you. What do you see as an entrepreneur that again, looking at industry impact? Because I think that's critical to what we're talking about, how the various industries get involved. From an entrepreneur, that part, what role do you think entrepreneurs can play, and how do they do that in making sure that we get a voice heard? From small to big.
Again, I go back to building your network, right? A strong network and a diverse network, right? Not staying in your comfort zone of the friends that you're comfortable with, but challenging yourself to go out and stretch your network, right?
Right.
You might not be in the circle of the 1%ers, right? But how do you navigate yourself into that meeting? How do you navigate yourself into that room, right? Does that mean that you have a friend that knows how to navigate and get into that room? So you have to get out of your comfort zone. The other thing, again, I continually say, get involved in your local politics, right? Hold them accountable, get the resources. Regina's a banker, right? Now I know Regina, right? So now I can go to Regina and say, hey.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely. So we're building networks here as we are having these conversations and these dialogues, right? So Regina now knows that I do crafts, so she might want something, right? So that's how we continue to build our networks, and we continue to elevate ourselves, right? And so local politics and networking, and not staying within your network that you're comfortable in, but getting outside of your network, the uncomfortable conversations.
And such growth comes from that. Brother Pearson, you're in that entrepreneurial sector as well. How you relate to what Jan is saying about how we grow and connect as we take our industries to help a voice be heard and addressed. You agree?
Yeah, I do agree. I mean, one key thing to understand is that like I tell people all the time, Tiger Woods, who's probably one of the greatest golfers of all time, has a coach and have a staff of people around him that advise him and they keep him in line. And it's so important for you to have your dream team and have your people, your support group around you to help give you direction, and also people who can help you get to the next level. So it's very important for you to have those mentors and just surround yourself with people who you can go to with those questions that help you avoid those mistakes that cost you money, time, and possibly success and failure.
Okay, but now, having said that, how do we connect all of us to, back to the administration? We got to hold them accountable. I think everybody would agree that they're coming in saying, I want to. We're saying, the question is, how do we help them get that done so that we get our voice heard? They're willing, they're reaching, they're giving out that olive branch. How do we connect to that? Brother Edwards, your thoughts on that?
Did you say my name, sir?
Yes, sir, I did, sir.
Oh, because I was texting you. So.
Oh, sir, sorry about that.
No, that's fine. What I think is it's when we go back to the administration, I just want to be totally and honestly clear with individuals. I think when we talk about how we move forward as a group under this administration, we must look at how we never moved anywhere under any administration. So when you look at the administration, I think there's a few things that we need to be very staunch about in our direction in moving forward with this administration. And one, I think what we talked about a few weeks ago, and I'm glad that Brother Turner is on because maybe from this he'll chime in. But one of the things that I want to say is that when we talk about inclusivity, we talked about that a few weeks ago. And when we talk about all of the protests and all of the marches and all of the civil rights acts that were passed in the 60s, that was because we were fighting for inclusivity. But if we talk about three things that I think with this administration that we need to be very, very collectively thinking about, which can change our position in this world, are the constitutional changes and the amendments. We talked about those constitutional changes. We talked about them never changing the Constitution to call us sophisticated animals, and we still operate under that particular initiative. The second one that I think is so very important is reparation and financial stability. Now, when people say reparations, we're not talking about you giving me a check, because I know what we're going to do when we get that check. We're going to go right to the malls, like I spoke about earlier, and buy something. We're going to go to the Cadillac dealership. We're going to go to whatever we feel is our crowning a call. And but I'm talking about something that gives our children an opportunity to be successful. We're talking about Brother Al talked about his children for the Al, help me, what you say, student loan payback, student loan payback. Yeah. But what about if our reparations gives all African American children an opportunity to go to college for free? The college of their choice, the college that they academically are eligible to go to, and they go for free. That's what we're talking about, reparations, giving people access to the same equity that other people of other races have. And I would say the third one is educational structure, and which changes the way that education is given or is provided or disseminated to our children. When we look at the different communities, we look at the resources in there, we see kids right out here where I am. We see the schools that are less fortunate having to use pencil and paper to get their notes for online, but the other children at the schools are at the schools passing out iPads and all of that stuff. So when we talk about how you disseminate the information as far as with those three particular things, I think that if we're going to look at this administration and it's doing anything for us, we have to first and foremost look at what we are willing to do for ourselves, and then have a direction on how we approach the administration. Because like Jan said, we start at the local level, we go to the state level, we go to the federal level, but we must have a unified agenda that addresses how we move forward as a people going forward. That's my thoughts. Thank you.
Well, Thank you, Brother Edwards. I think there's been some comment in that circle about that, because we talk about a focus. I think you got the whole I think Sister Johnson talked about looking at those that we get elected, those that we're pushing in front who speak for us, making sure they understand and feel what we feel. They're talking about what we want to talk about. That's so crucial. Now we have to be involved as well. We got to go to the local meetings. We got to make sure that we are aware of what's going on out there so that we can be adequately educated all across that spectrum. Again, looking at that industrially, looking at how each industry impacts it. Brother Al.
I'm glad that word came into the conversation. Reparations.
Okay.
I, for the longest, felt that did not make a lot of sense. But now I've changed my mind. but I like that comment about education being available and free. But not only, but to me, I still think there needs to be an edge that Black people get as a consequence of how much we've been cut out. In other words, sure, it may be free, but should it be free for it? It should be more free. I don't know how you make it more free.
No.
but more free for Black people than other people. I don't know how you do that.
Well, I'm glad you introduced this idea too, because in the intro, I talked about African-American, people of color, and Black. There is a distinct difference. And when we talk about reparation, we talk about certain values and benefits, it'll target at certain people. When you say people of color, you're talking about a vast array of different people. When you say African-American or Black, you're being very specific. And I think sometimes we get caught up in the idea of people of color and we forget about the specifics that you're talking about. So again, that's a sensitive area that we look at. Let me pause for a second right here. There's a couple of things I want to share with you, and then we're going to go into our lightning round. And I thank you all. At this time in the future, we will be having what we call something that I've already seen happen right here, a spotlight of some of you. Get an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself to this panel. Thus far, we've seen a connection between Jan and Regina, entrepreneur and banker. This is what our whole, and I like that. And I'll take 10% out of that, please. Thank you for that opportunity of connecting with people just in case. It's just a business transaction. That's all it is. But this is what we were going to be. We're going to be highlighting each of you with the intent to share thoughts, share activity, to be able to support across the spectrum, cross market. There's some of us sitting right here that can help each other that we don't know that we can help. There's support sitting here, we're looking at each other and don't know that we need each other's help and we can help others. So we're going to highlight, it's a real short segment, just a little, and you know who you are. If you don't, you will hear from us very shortly, that we will have this opportunity for you to express yourself and about who you are and what you're doing, with the idea that others will get to know you, be able to possibly support you, you support them, we support each other. Thus, we start on this single path that we just got through talking about attacking this thing from a group opportunity. We will start that effective next week. There's one.
Vince, can you hear me?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me, Vince?
I can hear you, Charles.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. I just want to let them know. Can you see me now? No?
Yes.
No. I want to let them. That is 3 minutes or less. 3 minutes or less.
3 minutes or less.
Yes, 3 minutes or less.
Yeah, 3 minute conversation.
Or less.
And this, or less. And this is an opportunity for you to share with us, and so that others can see you. I was so happy to see that with the way Jan spoke about Regina being the banker and to the entrepreneur, opens up dialogue. Brother Al, Brother Pearson, Sister Johnson, Reverend Crutcher, all of you, Brother Harold, all of us have so much to offer to the pot that I think some of us are sitting here with wealth sitting right in front of us and we don't know it. So we're going to be going in that direction. That's one of our new features. So when we call you in the middle of the week, take my call. Don't send me the voicemail, because I'm coming at you. We're going to get you involved, and we love. And I think you'll find it very refreshing. I look forward to that opportunity to do that. That would be, it'll be in this time next week. So for right now, I'm going into our lightning round. Give me your closing comments as we close out. Jan, your closing comments, please.
It was great to be on here with so many folks that I've seen just, with my camera off. So thanks for the opportunity. But I think this was a great dialogue, right? And again, we need to continue these dialogues, and how do we get invested in our communities to propel us forward, but also bring up the younger people and help them and coach and mentor them as well, because they're our next generation that's going to really hold the Congress and everybody accountable for what the laws are. So how do we as a network work like that?
Fantastic. Thank you. Regina.
Yes, I'm in agreement with what everyone has said on the panel this evening. I look forward to the new segment of next week, and I look forward to seeing everyone again. And welcome, Jan, for us to be able to see who you are. And just again, I think this is just a wonderful forum. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Brother Crutcher.
I'm thankful. I agree with everybody, and thankful to be a part of this forum. I think it's doing some wonderful things, and it's bringing us to a different level of understanding of what we have to be. In closing, I like to say an example of what we're talking about, I see in the sister Stacey Abrams of Georgia. She wanted something, she ran for it, she didn't get what she wanted, felt that she got disenfranchised. She used that energy to go out there and bring other folk into the process like never before. And she's done something that nobody thought would take place. And she turned Georgia blue. I mean, Georgia. She showed us that the resources are there, but we've got to tap into folk that we've overlooked. And we've got to if we bring other folk into this process, we bring people in that will help us accomplish. And now folk are calling her name. She doesn't have to call people. Folk are ringing her phone and saying, we want you to be a part. That's what we've got to begin to do. Get our giftedness and use it to do something that makes a difference. And folk will call us and want us to be a part of it.
There's that connection that we're talking about. Sister Johnson. Thank you, Brother Crutcher.
Okay.
I feel we should, it is a pleasure to be here again tonight. We should engage, we should create the platforms that addresses the need of the people and start to work.
Amen. I like that. Brother, thank you, Brother Pearson.
Yeah, I want to thank Brother Edwards for what he said about reparations, because I've had conversations with people before, but that was an awesome solution, awesome offering in terms of reparations. So that gives me some ammunition or something for my toolbox next time I'm in that conversation with somebody. Yeah, I look forward to the opportunity to share some things about real estate, or if anybody does have a question about a deal or something they're thinking about doing, I can kind of tell you how to evaluate a deal and the type of things you need to look at and consider. So I want to consider myself or offer myself as a resource to anybody, just to give you some advice in a market that I can't even sell you a house, but still I can still give you direction. So I look forward to us being able to share our knowledge and wisdom and experiences.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Al.
I'm just pleased to be a part of the group and keep it going. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Brother Edwards, Rich, we're glad you were here. I know you were here with us in spirit. Maybe one day you'll show up and show us your face, but that's okay. We just appreciate you being here. Brother Harold.
Thank you, Brother Carter. Being late, I have nothing else to contribute. Thank you for the privilege of being able to connect with you, even though I was late today. I'll see you next week.
All right. Yes, sir. Looking forward to it. Brother Darren, glad you got in. And Brother Gray, so happy that you were able to tune in for a minute. This concludes our evening together. It's always a pleasure to start, and it's a little heartfelt to let you go. But I know I got to let you go until the next time. But God bless and keep you. Keep your head up. Let's maintain the mission. Keep fighting the fight. Love one another. And come back and visit with us next week on Brother, Can We Talk? Thank you. Good evening. God bless.